platforms.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
The number one hit music station.
Hey everyone, welcome. It's Donna from Talk with Savage Desires at iLive Radio. Tonight is going to be a very hot topic. We have two awesome ladies that's going to be coming on to join us. Hi, Anessa, are you there?
I'm here, and it's Ianessa.
Ianessa, my apologies. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Donna.
Great. Is Reba's there as well?
I am. I'm here. Hi, Donna.
Hi, beautiful. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. But before we go into all of this, Ianessa and Reba, whichever one, could you just tell me a little bit about what is it that you do?
Go ahead, Reba.
Sure. I'm a certified sex educator. I identify as a sexologist, and I teach pleasure-positive sex education workshops and trainings to curious adults.
Curious adults, I like that. Thank you.
I'm a speech language pathologist. I have a master's, undergrad, and PhD in speech pathology, and my area of specialty is swallowing. Some people call me a swallowologist. It's a cute little term that they call people who specialize in swallowing, and that's my area of expertise, swallowing physiology.
All right. Thank you, swallowing and sexology. So tonight is going to be an amazing night. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me. And I know it was last minute, so I really appreciate it. So I don't even know who to grab first. So Ianessa.
Yeah.
Swallowing.
Yeah.
What is the biggest question asked about swallowing when people come to you?
First, they are trying to figure out whether I'm joking or not. Like even Reba was like, I don't think she understands what I do. Am I right, Reba?
Yes. Yeah.
Like swallowing is an actual disorder. It's called dysphagia. So disorder of deglutition. Deglutition is the other word for swallowing. And it's a whole area within the area of speech pathology, including in Canada, in the UK, all around the world, Japan, etc. We specialize in individuals who have swallowing disorders. And that's what my clinical and academic specialty is.
Okay, awesome. So you know what? Because I've run a couple. So no, because we're on the topic of swallowing, I've run a couple fellatio classes, right? And the biggest question that my client would ask was, "Why do I keep gagging? What's going on with the gagging or the gag reflex? You know, they can't do this." So what would be your what the word I'm looking for? What would be your opinion or your suggestion on how they would be able to handle this?
I'm glad you brought that up. I had no clue that this was even a concern until I had a conversation with Reba like a month ago. So just so you know, gagging and swallowing are not the same reflex.
Okay.
Swallowing is a different kind of reflex than gagging is. But gagging is essentially the process of sort of ejecting something from your throat, also known as pharynx. So that means that you have these experiences where your muscles contract from bottom to top, your tongue goes out, your soft palate goes up to protect things from going into your nose, and it's rejecting something from going into your throat or your stomach. It's the opposite of swallowing, if you will.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Reba, I'm gonna pick your brain as well for a little bit. I was on one of your programs the other day, and you were talking about the clitoris. So many women don't even know how to define or explain how to, let's say, self-love themselves. So, Reba, in terms of if someone wants, let's pretend there's a newbie on here listening, in terms of giving herself or playing with her clit and trying to find out what turns her on or what don't turn her on. What would be your suggestion on how someone should try to figure out what their clit is, how their clit works, or what turns them on or don't? Hello?
I think you're muted.
I was muted. Sorry.
Okay.
No, the biggest sexual organ in the body isn't between the legs. It's between the ears, and it's your brain. And so it really doesn't matter what you do to your body, you could do the same thing over and over. And today, like Monday, it could be like an amazing thing, and then Tuesday it's not the same thing, and that's because of the context that your brain receives the sexual stimuli in, right? So first things first is you got to get your brain into it, and the best way to get your brain into it is to get your brain back into your body and not focused on the external stuff, like
Mhm.
the kids screaming and the grocery list that didn't get done. Like you got to get back into your senses, right? And then the other thing I would say is you got to understand how your clitoris works, right? 90% of our clitorises are on the inside of our bodies, and 70% of us require external stimulation to reach orgasm, right? I'm in the 70%. So that means this anything going in and out, penetration is not enough to get me to reach orgasm. I've got to have a little extra external stimulation on the outside, right? And so that is me and 70% of people with clitorises. And so if you know that's how your clitoris works, when you're pleasing yourself, it's really important to focus on the outer parts more than the inner parts, because that's really where like the crux of your pleasure is. Now, if you're someone who prefers penetration over external stimulation, then it's really important for you to, play around with what kind of penetration do you like? Is it pounding? Is it a massage? Is it like this, the thing come hither motion with the finger? Like what kind of penetration is it that you like? And then when you're ready to please yourself, you can also invest in the tools that you need for your pleasure and not anybody else's.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the brain is the biggest pleasure tool,
Yeah.
and as women, more so women, we're going to speak about women. There's so much things that's going on in the brain. So how can one stop so much conversation? What's your suggestion? And how a woman or someone could stop all that internal dialect? Because we can carry some dialect on for hours, even in the moment of pleasure.
I'm going to start to sound like a hippie when I say this, but really like it's about mindfulness, right?
Mhm.
When you find that your mind is starting to ramble on and say all of those crazy things, and distract you from what you really, your pleasure, right? What you really
Mhm.
want is your pleasure, then you have to like take note of that, right? And say, oh, okay, this is that thing again, right? And I like to just say, put those thoughts on a train.
Yeah, bring it back.
Put them on a train and focus back on your breath and on your body, because the more you can get in tune with your senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell,
Mhm.
the easier pleasure is going to be for you to find.
Perfect. Ianessa, I hope I said it right this time. Are you there, Ianessa?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go back to you now in terms of tongue. Okay. So you're a scientist, right?
Hmm.
As well.
Yeah.
Okay. So the tongue is a muscle.
Yes.
So how important is it for women to do tongue exercise, or anyone, as a matter of fact, to do tongue exercises?
Not necessarily the exercises itself. I mean, again, when you're talking about healthy, normal, developing individuals who don't have any sensory deficits
Mm-hmm.
or movement, what we call motor deficits, women don't have any issues with their tongue differently from men at all. There's no exercises that healthy individuals need to do. Maintaining normal speech and swallowing and just regular tongue movements is perfectly sufficient
Mm-hmm.
for women to be able to just function at life.
Okay.
There's no sexual heightening associated with women doing exercises per se, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Okay, so I'm just going to throw this question out. So I'm not sure which person can answer, or both of you can, anyways. Can women get an orgasm during fellatio, or some women?
Are you saying if a woman is receiving fellatio, can she get orgasm?
Not receiving or
Absolutely.
giving, cunnilingus. So if a woman, let's say a woman is doing
Absolutely.
fellatio, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, again, I agree completely with Reba.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if somebody's giving you fellatio
Mm-hmm.
and you are completely in tune with that person and that experience, it doesn't really matter who it is. It matters that you're in tune with that experience. It is totally possible, I suggest, and this is really Reba's domain, to not be sort of cognizant or mentally there, whether they're a man or a woman, and not be able to achieve it. But a woman's tongue versus a man's tongue, really functionally and anatomically, they're not terribly different. It's really perhaps the receiver and perhaps their willingness to experience it and really get the most from it. But Reba, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think actually Donna is asking about the throatgasm.
Yeah, the throatgasm.
Asking about.
Oh, throatgasm. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so
Okay. But
a
I like
woman's
your answer
ability
anyway,
to
that's fine.
anyone, it's not a woman. So, okay, thank you, Reba. She was always setting me straight. So, any person's ability to experience throatgasm has more to do with access to the vagus nerve through some stimulation. So, the vagus nerve is one of 10 cranial nerves that basically come out of your brain as opposed to your spinal cord. And that particular nerve is huge. The vagus nerve is also known as the wandering nerve because it expands from all the way your throat, all the way down to your genitals. Other cranial nerves just go to maybe your eyes or your nose or your tongue or your lips or your face. And the vagus nerve ventures all the way down to your genitals, right?
Can we also just say that we are saying Vegas, Bagus, not Vegas, Begas?
Yes. And sometimes we joke around as nerds and say, what stays in Vegas?
Okay.
So the idea is that if you can, so similar to what we've experienced when you have a ice cream headache or brain freeze, it's phenylpalatine ganglioneuralgia. And basically the idea is that most nerves have multiple branches. And as a result, the branch that goes all the way down to your genitals is still, at the end of the day, has to connect with the main branch that ends up going to your brain. So think of a tree. At the level of the ground, it's just one big trunk. And as it goes up, it starts to branch off. And you can have various branches. And one branch goes to genitals, one branch goes to your throat, your pharynx. And for some people, you can actually access it through your throat. And some studies suggest that some individuals can actually achieve orgasm by stimulating that vagus, vagus nerve at the level of your throat through stimulation. And one of the many ways of stimulating that is via a penis. In fact, women who've had spinal cord injury shows that if they self-stimulate, they can actually still achieve orgasm. So yeah, it is possible for any human, not all humans, but some humans, to actually achieve that by stimulating the throat.
But I also just want to add that as a sex educator, and I find people who are like, oh, there are 29 different orgasms and I have to learn how to do all of them. And like I said, like earlier, they're not Pokemon. You do not have to catch them all. Like they are not.
No Pokemon. Just grab a couple.
Right? Like don't think that you're like your body is any less than or more than because you can or can't orgasm in a certain way.
I remember when I was married for many years, I never had an orgasm. I had my orgasm afterwards, after marriage of 20-something years. And it's so funny. And the reason why I was I came to this area of sexuality is because of my past, because just as what you were just saying, Reba, for years, you're thinking that you can't orgasm, but everybody else is doing it. So, kind of what's wrong with me? And the reason why I was asking about discovering or knowing that your whole body, because your whole body is basically orgasmic. It depends on how you play with it or, touch, but you have to be aware. And as you said, mindfulness. What's really new for me in all of this is, as much as I teach fellatio in certain aspect, I love the fact that ANSA, talk about the whole vagus nerves and the throatgasms, because a lot of people is not aware of this. So many women that I've spoken to, and we're talking island women, number one, they don't even want to give fellatio. One of the reasons, and they're not doing it to please themselves, to please their man, and it's not about them at all, but they're just doing it as a duty. So what we want to do, for anyone that's listening to this particular program, we want to let people start having and experiencing the journey of just the whole lovemaking aspect of things. So again, I'm going to throw this out, cunnilingus for men, because again, this is a West Indian thing. Jamaican men say that they don't go down. Patrick here is laughing because he's blushing like hell, but it's not a big thing. It's not a big thing, they refuse to go down. And ladies, both of you, Eunice, you can throw something in this as well in terms of cunnilingus. Explain what it is and kind of walk us through the cunnilingus duties, Reba.
Cunnilingus is the art of oral sex on a person that has a vagina, right, and a vulva. So cunnilingus, what people don't realize is that the clitoris and the penis have very similar structures, right? So the clitoris has a glans or the tip, which sits on the outside. It's like the head of the clitoris, just like the head of the penis is one of the most sensitive parts. The head of the clitoris is one of the most sensitive parts for most people. On the inside, there are two little bulbs. They look like balls, and they sit on either side of the vaginal opening. And when we get aroused, the clitoris swells, right? That's why you can see from the front of the vulva, like what we refer to as the vagina is actually the vulva. And it, like, you can see the lips, they start to swell. They look huge, right? Like they've swollen. But really what's happened is the clitoris behind it is swollen, so they look a lot puffier because there's things that are pushing it out. And so so when the clitoris becomes aroused and the shaft, so there's a shaft, the glands and the bulbs are connected by a little neck, and this is the shaft, and the shaft gets erect when we get aroused, which is why you can see it poking out of the vulva a little bit more. You can start to see the clitoris more when we're aroused because it's erect. And so with that said, just like penises like to be sucked, clitorises like to be sucked as well. And so I see so many people doing all this and it's like, okay, but where's the suction? But we need some kind of dynamic sensation. You can't just do this up and down all day or left and right or ABCs or cocoa or whatever it is. Don't do that. Like, you've got to figure out how your partner's body works, because here's the thing. If you're doing cunnilingus on a partner who doesn't really get a lot of pleasure from the external parts of their clitoris, guess what? You're gonna be down there for for a long time for nothing. Okay. So that's the other thing is, I mean, for men who, can we just address the whole, I don't go down on you, but
yes, please. I want you to, because that was going to be my next question. Please talk about it.
So here's the thing. Men are like microwaves. Women are like ovens. On average, men take 6 minutes to reach orgasm from masturbation. They're like a microwave. Boop, boop, boop. Women, on the other hand, on average, take 20 minutes to reach orgasm. And they're like ovens. We require a preheat, but once we've preheated, we're on all night, right? So why are we starting the timer on the microwave if the oven hasn't been preheated? And if you're not going to preheat the oven the way the oven needs to be preheated, then you better invest in some sex toys. Your finger game better be strong. You better be best at playing DJ Hero, because at the end of the day, okay, it takes us 20 minutes and it takes you 6 minutes. And so if you're not doing something to make up for that 14 minutes, then every one of your partners is going to be dissatisfied. And oral sex can help with that. And that's all I want to say.
Well, I'm glad you said it. And it's funny. I mean, earlier on you said it also start with the brain, and that realizing too, whatever you say to me at 8 a.m. in the morning too, right? Because now we're starting to play with the brain. By the time you get home too, with a little bit of cunnilingus, that also helps it. We need to get excitement. And I think that works as well, because words, like real true words, sapiosexual is a big turn on for many people as well. Right. There was this one guy, I remember, not one, a couple of them. One of the reasons that they say they don't go down is smell or the texture of a vagina. If someone comes to you with a statement like that, Reba, what would be your retort?
Okay, so let's talk about smell, right? So
she took a big sigh.
I think that some people are under the belief that vaginas are supposed to smell like roses or rainbows when their balls smell worse than...
Hey, this is Emily King, and you're listening to iLive Radio.
The internet's #1 on the World Wide Web. iLive Radio.
You're listening to iLive Radio. This is Jay Most. Enjoy.
How you doing? What's good? It's Nkechi the Lyrical, sitting in my zone here, vibing and listening to iLive. And if you don't know, get to know. And if you do know, you don't know. And if you know, then relax and enjoy the ride.
Attention à tous les musiciens, groupes, associations, clubs et organisations qui représentent les styles collectifs de musique à travers la Canada. Le moment est venu de reconstruire nos genres de nations musicales collectives comme le hip-hop, le R&B, le jazz, le soul, le reggae, le gospel et plus unis. La Nation de la musique collective est une organisation à but non lucratif engagée dans le développement de la musique collective. Des adhésions gratuites sont disponibles dès maintenant. La Nation de la musique collective, une seule voix, la force dans l'unité.
Nothing makes you look, feel, and perform better than a tailor-made suit. Just like a tailor-made suit, a mortgage is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Canadian Tailored Mortgage Solutions will customize a mortgage to perfectly suit your needs. Come and get fitted for your mortgage today at 1-877-834-9346 or reach us on the web at ctmortgagesolutions.com. COVID safety protocols are in place. Brokerage license number 13228.
You're listening to iLive Radio.
Here are some words of wisdom. Don't change your station. Don't change your station.
Ladies, welcome back. I'm so sorry. I got so caught up with all of this oven and microwave thing that I forgot that I was going on commercial break. So my apologies. So welcome back to iLive Radio with Donna Savage and Ionessa and Reba, the sex diva. Reba. Hello. Reba?
Yes, I'm here. So I was just saying that that like people expect vulvas and vaginas to smell like rainbows and roses, and balls smell worse than the underside of the toilet sometimes. And so I think people like really should start to just adjust their expectations about what bodies smell like and what like body fluid is supposed to smell like. Number one. Number two, if the smell is really that bad, like then that means there's an issue going on with your partner's pH, right? And that is not a like thing that makes her dirty or anything like that. It's just, you know what, if you've been leaving your semen in there, it's probably your fault. So so I would say, like, you know, hey, there's nothing wrong with like having a conversation and saying, you know, if my semen or whatever it is that's disrupting your pH, I'm happy to like not do that anymore. That's number two. And then the third thing is like, the people who complain about vaginas have never sucked a penis. And that's really all I can say. Like penises don't taste great either, but we suck it up. So that's okay. That's all I'm gonna say.
You suck it up. I like that. Oh my God. Because you know what, those are always the biggest. It's okay. You know what? I don't, the texture, and in doing a lot of research, the texture of a woman's vagina is like the inside of your jaw, correct? Inside of your mouth.
Well, so here's the thing. There's something called mucosa, which is what is on the inside of your mouth. It's basically a very thin tissue that secretes mucus. So maybe.
So maybe. So Ionessa, I know your expertise is on the whole swallowing and get reflex and all of that. Would you be able to give us, or the ladies who's out there, advice on how probably not to gag? Are they overthinking it? Or, you know, what's going on there? And also a big complaint for both of you, so you can answer, is also swallowing or taking in semen. You know, they prefer not to taste it or swallow it. You know, I know so many women don't even want it to touch their mouth. So is there advice that either you can give in terms of gagging, or how to either spit it out nicely or gracefully?
First thing I just want to say is that no different from food. If there's something you just plain don't like, you just plain don't like it. There's not a huge rationale. I have friends who cannot stand bananas because of the texture. They know that it's going to give them potassium. They know it's a quick snack with a package, all organic package ready to go, but they just can't stand it because of the texture. There's not a whole lot you can do to trick your body from that. However, if in fact you actually want to be providing fellatio and you are having issues with the gagging aspect, just like you want to brush your tongue with a toothbrush, but the idea of getting your toothbrush back to the back of your tongue to clean your tongue is a problem. There are many things you can do that are strategies that perhaps can distract you from having a gag reflex. Reba was telling me that some people actually sort of squeeze their hand or think about their toes. You can do whatever it is. Dentists put salt at the front of individuals' tongue so they can get back there and clean it. You have to think about what the thing is that will distract you. And frankly, thinking about the gag, that's a big way to gag.
It's true.
Having a full stomach of food, that's a big way to gag. Don't do anything that makes you think or concentrate on vomiting, because gagging is a precursor to vomiting. So you want to really put your brain somewhere else and somehow focus on the penis, if you will.
Focus, full attention on the penis.
One thing that I learned from my conversations with Yanessa is also that like so gagging is actually not a terrible thing to do during fellatio, right? Especially if your partner is a man, right? Gagging like is an ego move, right? I knew that. It's like, oh, your penis is so big, I am choking.
Yes, it's true.
Right. But it's also, and this is what Yanessa helped me figure out, it also helps okay, after you gag, right? What happens right after that, right? Your mouth starts to like spit, right? But what Yanessa told me is not just the like watery spit that comes from the front of your mouth. It's that like that gooey, gloppy spit, you know, the good kind.
The good kind.
It lingers, right? And so it comes from the back of your throat when you gag, and it actually helps make the job a lot easier because you've got like a good thick lubricant that's going to stay on the penis and keep that dry friction away, which kind of takes away from pleasure. So, I mean, gagging is again not a terrible thing as long as you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Reba, for reminding me of that, which is gagging is a protective function that happens whether you are in danger or not. Just like the example I give is if you're in your car and something flies into your windshield, you're going to blink and do this even though you're not in danger because the windshield is going to protect you, right? So think of that with gagging. And sometimes you need to override that inherent stimulus that is trying to initiate the gag. And if it does happen and it's not so distracting that you can't continue, that you actually throw up, or that the sexual intimacy is broken, then let it happen, because it does help you to secrete the more organic lube, if you will, that she was mentioning.
And it's true, because it's a very nice, juicy, slimy lube. And you're right. Right, Reba. I think
and that's what our bodies produce naturally. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing disgusting or inorganic about it.
Like that.
I will say, like, so a lot of folks, especially in my fellatio workshops, they're like, oh, but Reba, I don't want to spit. Like, I'm really clumsy. So like, if I spit, I might accidentally spit in my partner's face. Like, I don't know my strength sometimes, right? And so I just do like a really dainty dribble, you just like pucker your lips and just let it kind of drip out of your mouth onto the phallus or the penis, whatever you're sucking. And like, it works. But I think what we're all saying here is like, you cannot give great fellatio without a good amount of spit. Like, you need it. Nature's lubricant is required.
But it's the thing about it is too. I think it's the more of the women not feeling sexy. Come on, we're having sex. There's gonna be sweat, spit. There's gonna be so much secretion happening there. And I think men do, as you said, men love the fact that their penises is getting all of that wetness and that thickness. I think it's a huge turn on.
Yeah, I would also argue that any human being, woman or man, who is totally in touch with their body and happy that their body is responding to sexual interactions that are consensual, let their body enjoy it the way they want to. Stop trying to make it a performative or beautiful looking act as if there's a camera watching you. That's just not the way it works. sex can be like eating. When this is a thing that even swallowologists deal with, which is eating is a messy enterprise. You're talking, you're laughing, you're drinking, you're swallowing food, and sometimes something goes down the wrong tube and you cough a little bit, you throat clear a little bit. That's natural. That is the eating process. And many other processes are that way. Communication is that way. You mean to say something, you say something else, so you correct yourself and you laugh at yourself. That's the way the human body is. And the same thing is with sex. You mess things up or things get messy and it actually enhances the sexual interaction. That's the way the human body is.
And and that's one of the reasons why so many women have this thing of being caught up of not even having a moment or enjoying sex or not having orgasm because you're just too caught up on how they look or or what's going on, versus, as you guys said, throw yourself into the play, the bedroom play. It's just too much. I mean, you're going to feel a ways if you're spitting too much, or it just take away from the whole aspect of the bedroom play. And it can't be one-sided in terms of someone having an amazing time in the bedroom. Reba mentioned, that so many women only achieve clitoral orgasm, or external orgasm versus penetrative orgasm. But we'll talk about that later. So I'm going to go back on the train track just for now. And earlier on, Reba mentioned about even bringing toys into the bedroom. Toys for a lot of people or persons, some couples think that, it's an anomaly. They don't want to bring toys. So how can a woman, because I know most women anyways, could introduce a sex toy or in the bedroom? How does that communication look like to both of you? Can answer, because maybe both of you have different input on this.
Well, if we're talking about sex toys in heterosexual relationships, then bring it in during the fellatio. I'm gonna tell you why. Two reasons. One, if you bring it in during fellatio, it's a toy not just for you, it's for your partner too, right? So it's not like a thing that has to replace them or serves to replace them. I know a lot of guys who will hear me talk about sex toys and they're like, but Reba, I don't want to buy a sex toy for my woman because, she doesn't need, I'm all she needs. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you're not always around. and also like what happens when, we've started the microwave and the oven hasn't preheated, then what? Are you going to go down on her for the remaining 14 minutes? No. Are you going to catch carpal tunnel trying to rub it out of her? No. So then what else can you do? Oh, there's a toy. Here's a vibrator that you can use. And it doesn't have to be like a big, huge dildo vibrator. Like I recommend for couples, especially for folks who are in relationships where the male partner is a little squeamish about the sex toy, start with something small that doesn't look like a huge penis. Like do, something that's not like some big, huge contraption that whirs. Don't do that, right? Do like a small, like bullet, or like there's like wearables, like a ring finger massager, or like there's a necklace that has a little massager on it, or like a vibrating panty, right? If you can get your partner to see the fun and the necessity of the vibrator, then they're more likely to use it going forward. Because if it took you 10 minutes to reach orgasm with oral and a vibrator, and it normally takes you 20 to 30 on their own, then they're more likely to pick up that vibrator every time going forward.
So you're not saying to have a conversation before all of that? You're saying to bring the little bullet in during fellatio time and just put it on him? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, that is what I'm saying. I am. That is exactly what I'm saying. Because sometimes people, when you give them the thought, the idea of, oh, a sex toy, it's like, oh, no, this is a bad idea. But in the moment, it's like, no, this is great. Do that again. Keep that right there. Oh, yes, this feels good. Now, I'm not saying put it on high and put it on his balls. Do not do that. He will jump out of his skin and out of the window. Do not do that. But what I am saying is you do want to prime, right? Say, look, I know that sex toys can be good for me, but they can be good for you too. Would you be willing to like explore that with me? And if you get a yes, then boom, you got it. Put him on his balls, on that space between his balls and his butthole, the perineum. Put it right there. You can try it on the tip of the penis, but only after you've done the first two first, because the tip of the penis is a lot more sensitive than the rest of the penis. So, but yeah, penises are very susceptible to vibrations when it comes to pleasure as well. So.
I'm glad you started talking about the perineum. So I want you to give examples of the most sensitive part, the three most sensitive part on a penis. I know you just mentioned it, but just high level, as quickly, could you repeat it for those who are just joining us?
Yeah. Yeah, so the three most sensitive parts. That's hard, right? But for most people, the head of the penis or the glands is one of the most sensitive parts. And the most sensitive part of the head is actually the frenulum, which is that the underside of the penis, right at the top of that big long vein, that's the frenulum. So that's the underside. That's, I would say, if we're talking about the sensitivity of the head, that is where the sensitivity comes from. It's the frenulum. The second part of the penis that is often neglected, that I think is very sensitive too, is the balls. Okay. A lot of folks, when they're sucking the penis or pleasing the penis, they're just worried about the penis and not anything beyond the penis. So definitely the balls, I'd say it would be second. And then third, and most important in my mind, is that space just behind the base of the penis, behind the balls, in between the balls and the butthole. That's called the perineum, the taint, the gooch, whatever you want to call it. That is a really, I'll call it sensitive, but it's not really sensitive. It's just an access point because it gives you access to the prostate. The prostate is on the inside of the body between the rectum and the navel, right above the base of the penis. So when you put upward pressure on the perineum, either with your tongue or your fingers, or a toy, then you're putting indirect pressure on the prostate. And a lot of folks don't know this, but men have two different types of orgasms. They have the penile orgasm and the prostate orgasm. Prostate orgasms are 33% more intense than penile orgasms. So playing around with the perineum is a really great way to really help your partner explore the intensity of their pleasure.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So milking.
Yes.
Explain what milking is and the best way to perform this, please.
So when a man goes to get a prostate exam, a doctor takes a lubricated gloved finger, puts it into the anus, curves it towards the rectum and feels for this, curves it towards the navel and feels for this walnut-sized organ. That's the prostate. A lot of men, especially the heterosexual ones, get hard when this happens and they start to ask themselves life-altering questions. Am I gay? What does this mean? I don't know wife, that kind of stuff. So that's how you milk the prostate, right? And they don't, and because no one has ever told them about the prostate, they don't know what they don't know. So they really start to like get scared and ask really like crazy stuff for themselves. So, so it's important. I hope everybody who's listening, like, shares with a friend that this is the prostate, right? The prostate is a really powerful organ, especially as you get older and your penis may start to, not work as well as it did when you were younger. The prostate is a real powerhouse for sexual pleasure. So it's people typically, especially hetero men, they typically find out about their prostate and start to explore this, later in life, like 40s, 50s and up.
So they can also perform milking at home, yes, because I think they do have prostate toys for this. No,
yeah, prostate massagers. A prostate massager looks just like, it looks just like a dildo. It just has like a flared base on the end and a little handle, like so that it doesn't get lost up there. It would never get lost. That's not a thing that can happen. But a doctor, if it didn't have a flared base, it could get stuck and a doctor would need to remove it, right? But yes, there are anal plugs, there are prostate massagers, there are penis and prostate massagers together, right? You have one that puts on your penis and then a little loop that fits in the back, right? These are all really great ways to explore that kind of pleasure. Yeah.
Oh my God, you ladies, so much information tonight, and I appreciate it. For those who are joining us, we have Reba and Ianessa, the sexual goddesses. When I say goddesses, they have so much information overload, and I totally love this. I'm going to throw squirting out there. Reba, can all women squirt?
Hard questions. There are not enough studies out there for us to determine whether or not everyone can squirt. In the same way, though, that not everyone has experienced a throatgasm, not everyone has experienced the ability to squirt. For some folks, it is an orgasm. Every time they orgasm, they squirt. Sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it's a lot. For some people, it just happens during sex. It's not an orgasm. It's not something that happens during orgasm. It kind of just happens. And I love talking to Inessa about this because you know how like under your tongue, like it kind of squirts, just involuntarily just squirts sometimes.
Especially
For some
if you have
people,
something sour though.
yeah, right. for some people, that's just how their vaginas are. They just squirt sometimes. And sometimes it's every orgasm. And sometimes it's never at all. And all of it's normal and all of it's okay.
So what's your thought on this, Ianessa?
Yeah, so think about when you see food, and sometimes you can actually definitely feel your mouth watering, and other times you don't. The point is your mouth is getting your salivary glands are getting your mouth ready to receive food, right? And it's lubricating your mouth so that it can really enjoy the food, and so that it can actually make sure the food moves properly through your mouth. Some people actually feel, they're like, oh my God, my mouth is watering. I had to swallow it because there's so much, because the food smells and looks so good. So all those visual and what we call olfactory or smell stimuli are basically making you, or even the sound of like food cooking, all of that is it's the outer course, as Reba has told us. It's all the stuff that happens before intercourse of the food in your mouth, right? And so there are actually secreting glands that are in your oral cavity that are more fluidy, as opposed to the thick stuff we talked about before, that really you can actually see squirt out. And the same thing, I suspect, is what we call, this is all what we call normal variability. Normal variability means everybody's normal, but they're normal in the way that they're normal and might be distinct from a way that somebody else is normal. And so that same thing can be with a vagina in terms of the way it secretes, or the way the oral cavity secretes. Your nose runs, your eyes run, all of those things. Some people have more earwax. There's all kinds of secretion happening that varies across human beings.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to stick a pin in that because I need more. I'm going to have so much more questions on that. So we're going to go on commercial break just about now. So when we come back to think about this, we want to know what type of fluid it is. Okay. What kind of fluid? Because some people, we have this big thing if it's pee or not. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. So see you soon.
This is Adrena, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hey, this is Bay Bright, the bad boy indie soul, Bright Vision Entertainment CEO, and you're chilling, listening to iLive Radio. Keep it locked.
This is Cheryl Brooks, and you're listening to iLive Radio, supporting independent artists and their music.
Hello, I am Erica, and you're listening to iLive Radio with some of the best independent artists from around the world.
What up? It's your girl Shanaz, and you're listening to some of the best independent soul music from around the world with iLive Radio.
This is Miss Care, keeping you connected with your iLive 5x5, brought to you by iLive Music, sponsored by Independent Hype, and powered by The Hook Entertainment. Contribute to the conversation by using hashtag iLive5x5.
For the latest and greatest in soul music and more, stay tuned to iLive Radio throughout the week.
Connect with our team at iliveradio.com or follow us at iLive Radio across social platforms.
You're listening to iLive Radio, www.iliveradio.com.
Welcome back. This is Donna Savage at iLive Radio with Ianessa and Reba, the sexual goddesses. Ladies, welcome back. And thank you. So the question before we went on commercial break is the fluid. So many questions what type of fluid is, and everybody's saying it's pee, it's water, it's fluid. So ladies, what's your take on this?
So the only study that has been done on squirting has been to determine whether or not it was pee. And what scientists determine is that while it is a compound that is similar to pee, it has urea, it has traces that, you know, it has come from the bladder, but it is not identical to urine. So it's obvious it's not urine. In my mind, it's similar to urine, but it's not urine. You could say that arousal fluid is similar to urine, but it's not urine, right? So no, A, it's not pee. B, it doesn't even come from the same place that pee comes from. Typically our pee comes from the urethra, right? All of us whether you have a penis or a vagina, your pee comes out of your urethra. But there are little tiny glands underneath surrounding the urethra called the Skene's glands. And this is where scientists really believe that that female ejaculate that we're talking about is coming from, right? So guess what? That's not the urethra and it's still not pee. So
Inessa?
So I'm going to defer to Reba on this. It's very similar to the types of saliva. There are multiple glands in your oral cavity that come from all the way back here, all the way to your sublingual area. And what secretes when depends on the person, the circumstance, and you might be kissing somebody and find that they have a very goopy sort of saliva, and somebody else might have a very watery saliva. But it's difficult to study this because you would have to know how to secrete from particular glands. So yeah, again, guys, people, I just feel like if you're engaging with a human being, you're engaging with their human or their human being. And if you are squeamish about what humans do, then you might not perhaps be enjoying the experience as much. I'm not suggesting that somebody go beyond what makes them comfortable, but you have to expect that a human being doesn't have a lot of volitional control over a lot of these functions. And you can enjoy it as a whole experience, or you can, decide for yourself, which is totally okay, that there are certain things that are gross. I mean, Reba and I have talked about kissing and the idea that some people have very forceful tongues and they're like trying to touch your tonsils or maybe surgically remove them, right? And some people love that, other people don't. Just because the human body can do this, it doesn't mean that everybody loves it, but it also doesn't mean that everybody hates it, and it's all okay.
Awesome. Also, for some women, they don't know the difference if they're going to be squirting or having an orgasm. And a lot of women I know, it intentionally hold back their orgasm because they don't want to, again, feel ashamed of all this liquid, because a lot of men are kind of scared and wondering, where's all this fluid coming from? Or is it normal? Because, back in the day, it just didn't happen. All of a sudden, people are squirting and making a mess. So what would be the advice for women who are holding back on their orgasm because they can't differentiate if it's a true orgasm or a squirting? And I mean, squirting is part of orgasm, but not the more liquidy versus the creamy part of orgasm.
So I was with a partner, I'm a queer person, and I was with a partner who orgasmed every time she orgasmed, she squirted like a fountain. Like you see in porns, like squirted. And I always thought that was fake, right? I was like, oh, that can't be real. They got stuff in their vaginas that's squirting out. There's no way that anybody ever does that. And then I met this person and I was just like, oh my gosh. And she had the same issue, right? She was like, I don't masturbate. I don't it's hard for me to even enjoy my pleasure because it's so messy. What do I do? And so here's what I would say. If you're a squirter and you gush, number one, that's a cool thing. It's kind of cool, right? It's cool because dry friction is the enemy of pleasure. And when you squirt like that, it's kind of like your body automatically eliminates dry friction completely. So that's kind of cool. The second thing is, you have to prepare for your pleasure. Okay. If you can only masturbate in the bathroom, in the tub, you better light candles and make it a ritual, a habit for yourself, right? If you can only masturbate on the floor in your room, then invest in a waterproof towel, waterproof blanket and some towels, and allow yourself to feel pleasure, because you're gonna turn 60 and 70 and 80 and be mad that you spent all of this time not enjoying your pleasure when you really are having trouble enjoying it more, right? So don't waste time, right? Your pleasure is yours. And if you aren't gonna advocate for your pleasure and prioritize your pleasure, you can't expect anybody else to.
I would also add that consider the source of your shame and that it didn't come from you.
Definitely.
You can spend your time taking in what people say to you and internalizing it and not enjoying your life, or realize they don't know why they said it either. And it's just not a worthy reason to not enjoy your life because a random person over there said, ew, gross. Don't pick up what everybody puts down.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that was going to be a part of my final word. So I'm really glad that you said that, because people turn their mind against so many things before they even try it. Again, it's programming. We're going to be off here in a little bit, but before Ianessa, give us about 5 of your final thoughts in terms of the whole gag reflex and how women should, or men, whoever, should think about the whole gagging, and how they would feel about the whole gagging experience, or gagging experience.
Yeah, so always remember that your body has a whole host of things that it's set up to protect you. And sometimes it launches a protection that you didn't need. And that's okay. Sometimes some people's threshold for a gag is super low relative to somebody else. And that might be really protective when they were a kid and they try to swallow a quarter. And I would have died because my gag reflex is way up here. I would have been the kid at 5 who just never made it, because my gag reflex needed a very high threshold to be elicited, right? So there's nothing wrong with having these reflexes that are in place to protect you. And as I said before, so long as it's not interfering with with your pleasure portal, right? It's not literally gagging out your pleasure portal and keeping anything from coming in there, then figure out a way to incorporate it into what you do that's enjoyable.
You mentioned salt. Put salt at the tip of your tongue.
So what I said, just so you know, I'm in DC and like there are motorcades all over the place. I'm not sure if Biden's about to drive down the street, but if you hear sirens, that's why. So dentists have to get deep into people's mouths and throats. And what some of them do is they put salt at the tip of the tongue to distract the brain, to focus on this extreme taste so they can actually get back to the back of the tongue. So when Reba and I were talking before, there are many things you can do, and Reba could probably speak to this better than I could, but perhaps taste is another distraction, other pleasurable senses. Candles, or putting some kind of lube or something on the penis that actually tastes really good to distract you. So you can trick your brain into thinking that this is something that's edible almost, right? Again, it's just an idea of the way the brain works is that it likes to focus on 2 or 3 things at a time. I put this sweater on earlier today. And like I said before, or these earrings, I'm not thinking all day, oh my God, I have this on. There's something called neural adaptation where your brain starts to inhibit certain sensory responses to focus on other things. And maybe you can enhance focusing on other things, meaning the actual penis, and sort of desensitize the gag reflex because you focus on smells and sights and other tastes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Reba?
Yeah, I mean, I think my final thoughts on everything we talked about today would just be to prioritize your pleasure, right? Get to know your pleasure, because it's a lot easier for you to tell your partner about your pleasure, right? If you know it, regardless of who you are, but especially if you're a woman, because we aren't really taught to learn ourselves and our bodies like that. So I would say prioritize your pleasure. And then I would also say, actually, no, that's it. I would just leave it at prioritize your pleasure. And that comes for everything, like for the sex toys, for what you do and don't want to do in bed, for what you do and don't like. Like, it is important for you to advocate for and prioritize your pleasure, because if you don't, no one else will.
Okay, thank you, ladies, so much. But before I let you guys go, you said prioritize your pleasure. So many women, a lot of women, don't even know what it feels like. Would you be able to give an example of what it feels like? I know a couple of women I've spoken to, they say it feels like pee, but every time they feel like they want to pee, they stop the process, go about their business, pee. So in times like this, what would be your suggestion or ideal saying to these women if they feel that kind of feeling that's coming on during their play, their bedroom play?
It's really normal to feel pressure, like in the bladder area, because what's happening is all of our muscles are contracting, all of our pleasure center muscles are contracting and releasing, and it's building up tension in our pelvic floor. And all of that tension can feel like pressure on the bladder. For some folks, that pressure is like a symptom of the release, right? That comes with squirt, right? Some people will, a lot of the people that, at least that I've spoken to, have recalled that feeling of like pressure building, in the abdomen or near the bladder. especially if they're squirters. And so I would just say, really just pay attention to again, be mindful about the pleasure feelings, right? Lean into those pleasure feelings. If you feel like you have to pee, go, go ahead, like do it, and honestly, like if you feel like this is something that is like you're ashamed of or that you're scared of, like do it in the bathtub. Like there are whole like pillows you can buy from Amazon. I have one, you can like it has a little pillow, you can lay it down in the bathtub and like it's waterproof. And so if you really do need, some kind of like confidence boost, then that really works.
Can I also say, get a partner that makes you feel comfortable as well. If you're with somebody who makes you feel uncomfortable about the way that you express yourself verbally in any aspect of life, then perhaps it's not a great idea to try to get to the height of your sexual pleasure with that person, because perhaps they're a factor that's not sort of propelling you forward. And maybe that's something you need to reconcile in yourself.
Exactly. Ladies, oh my God, thank you so much for coming on tonight and breaking it down for everyone to, to talk about this, because it's not talked about a lot. So ladies, thank you so much. And Reba and Yanessa, you are awesome, ladies. And I want you guys to just keep marching on, because with what you're doing in teaching women and men about their sexuality, and just to face it and enjoy every moment of it. So much is, I'm thinking about all this, and for years of being non-orgasmic and not understanding my body and how it works, and until that day that I decided to take my sexuality in my own hand. It's just like, babies are learning to walk. I had to basically learn how to walk again and discover this body in my 40s, and understanding that sexual health is very important. Communication is very important. You want to be with someone that's going to make you comfortable, that you can have amazing sex with. Sex doesn't have to be penetration. It's exchanging of energy, conversation, learning the different parts of your body that turns you on. What Reba mentioned earlier on, it takes a woman 15 to 20 minutes in order for a woman to have an orgasm. So we need to figure out how is it that we're going to please our ladies. Ask them what is it that they want. If they don't know what they want, maybe you can, start a conversation. I wanted to say so much more, but we're going to be going off. And but this I think I need these ladies back on, because this is just touching the tip of the iceberg. It's such an amazing way of just having this conversation about sex and sexuality. It's such a beautiful thing, and we want everybody before they die to have amazing sex and an amazing orgasm. So this is Donna Saba with iLive Radio. See you next week at 8:00. Peace out.
Hello and welcome to the promo for Always Digging. My name is Jeff Skull, aka DJ Scully Funk. Every Sunday afternoon, my partner Gary, aka DJ Gaza Taylor, and I